Now I switch to English. The next speaker is, I think, a super interesting project developed in the Netherlands. So they will be speaking with us, Kasper Nossent, I hope I pronounce it well, a commercial director of Dyecoo Textile Systems. Ci parlerà a true sustainable dyeing process, water-free and chemical-free dyeing of polyester. Kasper, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, cannot see your face. Probably.
Let me switch on the camera a moment.
Yeah, great.
There we go.
Okay, yeah, I can see you. The presentation is there.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Kasper Nossent. I am the commercial director for Dyecoo. Dyecoo is a Dutch company that's developed over the last 10 years a technology to dye polyester fabrics and yarn without the use of any water and any chemicals. So our journey is basically focusing completely on sustainability. If we look at the global population in the world today, it keeps growing. All these people need clothes. So there is an increasing demand for garments around the world. And what we see today is that the majority of these garment demands are filled up with fibers like polyester. Polyester is still the fastest growing fiber group in the world and will remain the most dominant fiber group for decades to come, simply because it's easy to produce. You can produce it anywhere in the world. It's relatively price stable and it has a constant quality, and that makes it very interesting to use. And nowadays, with technologies available, we can even increase the performance of polyester in terms of hand feel, in terms of let's say drapability, that it nearly mimics the properties of cotton. That makes it a very interesting fiber. So our technology focuses completely on polyester. If we look at the dyeing and finishing industry at large, then of course we are, as an industry at large, one of the most polluting in the world in terms of water usage, energy usage, but also in using water, that also means that you create wastewater, and wastewater needs to be treated. And unfortunately, in the textile industry, we use a lot of chemicals, either to facilitate dyeing processes or to add functionality to textiles by adding chemicals to them. So this is something that we need to challenge. Luckily, in the world, the brands and retailers are pushing their agendas to clean up their supply chains. However, the supply chains are quite rigid. So there's a lot of capital invested in technologies that need to be changed and substituted for impact technologies to really make an impact in the world. So when we look at a more focused case on polyester, this is actually from a life cycle assessment on a garment made out of polyester. And here we can also see the actual impact in terms of where is the most water being used. And also this part is also the part where we use the most chemicals, which is in the waste processing, which is pre-treatments, dyeing and finishing all combined. So if you want to make an impact in sustainability, and also as part of a circular economy approach, there's a lot of effort being put into the material side. So a lot of companies are switching to the use of recycled polyester, which is great. We see alternatives for polyester coming up out of sustainable resources. But if we don't address the fact that processing it in terms of dyeing and finishing, then we still have a quite large impact in terms of carbon footprint, but also in water and chemical usage. So in our book, when we look at sustainability, it's a two-way street. It could increase the competitive power of regions that are starting to invest in sustainable impact technologies. This is predominantly true for countries like Vietnam or Bangladesh, where a lot of dyeing activities are being attracted to close the supply chains with their garment factories. So there's a big deficit in fabric production, and it's currently being filled up with local dye houses being invested by foreign companies. And to do this, they want to attract clean technology. So there's a big agenda now being rolled out to actually attract clean processing rather than the dirty part of the business, which is the dyeing and finishing part. So we see sustainability as an opportunity to grow for regions, to specify and to diversify themselves, but also for companies that invest in sustainability to actually generate a unique selling point and to differentiate themselves from the mass. Our approach to this is that we thought a little bit different than traditional textile companies. Our origin is not from textiles. We've been founded by a couple of guys that have nothing in common with the textile industry, but they're great physicists, and they invented a technology that actually allow us to completely differentiate our path. We use no water, we don't use any chemicals, instead of focusing on reducing water and chemical uses by being more efficient with existing technologies. So how do we do this? Well, if we don't use any water, we don't create any wastewater. If we don't use any chemicals, we don't have any waste in chemicals as well. So the only things that we use is basically CO2, which is the carrier that we use today to bring the dyes to the fabric, and pure dyes. That's the only part that we add to the process. And that is the way we colorize our fabrics. So if we do this and only use dyes and only use pure carbon dioxide, on a modest production of about 2.5 tons a day in polyester dyeing, this already adds up to about 34 million liters of water in annual savings, just by water that you don't need to use in the process at all, and that doesn't create any wastewater that you need to treat. It's approximately 170 tons of chemicals that are not being used. Those are all process chemicals being added in the dye process to actually facilitate the dispersed dyeing of polyester. And we use significantly less energy because we should not forget that treating wastewater is an energy-intensive process and also adds to the carbon footprint of your production. If you eliminate that part, your dye house becomes way more compact, and your carbon footprint is reducing significantly. So to prove this, we started when we launched the technology with actually benchmarking ourselves. So SCF stands for supercritical fluids. In this case, we use carbon dioxide. And in this life cycle assessments, which has been third-party verified, we compare ourselves against the best available technologies in jet dyeing, which is the most common used technology to dye polyester. And we actually redo this exercise at the moment with a few brands and retailers that actually want to do this specifically on their own products as part of a strategy to implement CO2 dyeing on a broader base into their supply chains. So we have reached the stage where we also prove impact on product level. And this is all to contribute to the sustainability agendas where impact technologies need to prove that they have an impact, and that also facilitates brands and retailers to commit to actually use these technologies to drive their sustainability agendas. Without clean processing, we cannot truly speak about a green circular economy. So if we specifically look at the textile industry and then more zoom in on polyester, then there is of course a very good supply chain already focusing on material. So a lot of recycled polyester is being used today. Alternative sources are being used to source sustainable polyester, which is all great. We see that brands and retailers are upping their antes and actually adding more and more recycled polyester to their product mix. But if we keep processing it in a, let's say, dirty way, still using a lot of water and chemicals, we are not really truly changing anything because the biggest impact the industry makes is actually in the processing part. So when you look at a circular economy, we do need to address the fact that clean processing and clean dyeing and finishing is a pivotal element in it. In our case, in a journey of about 10 years, we went through several generations of our technology. We now have the 4th generation of machines in the market. We have customers operating our machines across Southeast Asia. So we have business cases running. All of them are suppliers to leading brands and retailers. We have a customer operating since the beginning of 2020 as a supplier to several large international brands and retailers. And this is what we call the dye house of the future. This is a dye house that implemented only CO2 dyeing at 10 ton a day capacity, including pre and post treatments that are all optimized to minimize the water use, water consumption per kilo fabric. In this factory, we look at a approximate use of less than 25 liters per kilo fabric. And this factory is also a benchmark factory for Adidas, for Decathlon, and for the Otto Group or Bonprix from Germany. All they do there is to prove that this technology has a significant impact, prove the business case, run their fabrics, and then also implement it in a wider way into their supply chains. We use this as well as a commercial showcase. So for brands, they can come here and actually look at the technology at work. And we use this as well as a showcase to the industry. So we welcome any dyer in the world to visit this factory and see how the process works and how it operates and what the significant impact is, both commercially and also from a sustainability point of view. Besides Clean Dye, which is our showcase factory, we operate customers across Southeast Asia. All of them operate in the supply chains of brands and retailers. Our commercial focus as a business has been fully on Asia, because that is where the largest volumes of polyester are being sourced. Globally, about 70% of all the polyester volumes for international brands and retailers is sourced in Asia. And there we can find dye houses with business cases that can go up to 50 to 100 tons a day only dyeing polyester. This is very difficult to find in Europe, so we are still looking for opportunities in Europe, which will be focusing on more niche business cases where sustainability has a significant added value. And the first customer that we will have is a dye house starting to operate next year in the Netherlands, that will actually start utilizing our machines to produce automotive fabrics. So the automotive industry has a big interest in sustainable processing, and that is the first business case we get online. And then we are looking for other niches in the European market as well that will mainly be focused on other fiber types beyond polyester, smaller business cases with more added value products. But the bulk production of polyester will still be in Asia for a long time. These technologies are not finding their way into the market if they are not adopted by brands and retailers. Impact technologies by default, not only our technology, but also technologies that are also approaching the same problem in a different angle, all are more capital intensive than new, so they don't have the economies of scale yet. So for a dye house to change and to actually invest in new technology, which is a significant higher capex than traditional technologies, they need commitments. They will not invest in sustainability just because they believe it's good. There needs to be a business around it, because sustainability is as good as it gets as long as you can make money with it. And nobody invests out of charity, unfortunately. So these are brands and retailers that are currently actively either sourcing fabrics to drive down their water and chemical usage, or start using proprietary branding. For a long time, Adidas and Nike had proprietary branding on the market for products that were dyed in CO2. But the majority of the brands today are using it to, let's say, as an overall strategy to reduce their water and chemical usage in the industry, and also report it on corporate level. And we're now starting to do life cycle assessments where probably from next year onwards, we will see on product level as well claims on sustainability impact. This was in a very short nutshell what we do. And how the impact is there, and how it can contribute to a circular economy. I've kept it very, very condensed because we had limited time. So if there are any questions, feel free to approach that later on. We operate in the public domain. It can be approached easily, also through the organizers. And if there are any questions now, happy to take them. I'm a little bit constrained in time, but feel free to shoot any questions.
Okay, yeah, thanks a lot, Kasper. I think it was super interesting.